This program has been made possible by the Citizens for Nonpartisan Civic Engagement, Mesilla Valley Transportation, Southwest Organizing Project, and the Las Cruces Channel Media Network, streaming live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.
When you partner with Mesilla Valley Transportation, you can count on a group of hardworking professionals that make sure your freight is secure, handled with care, and delivered on time. We have proudly been moving America's cargo since 1982, starting with local businesses to now transporting for Fortune 500 companies. We invest in the industry's most advanced technology when it comes to dispatching, logistics, and safety. You can trust that our customers are our number one priority. Every day we drive our company to be the best, and that's why we drive for you.
Citizens for Nonpartisan Civic Engagement. And welcome to our New Mexico Election 2020 Candidates Forum. Due to the pandemic, we've had to change it up, look for different ways to engage with the candidates. Look for different ways to engage with the candidates. So we've come to the Las Cruces channel and asked them for time to allow the candidates to meet with us and our commentators so that we can engage with the folks out there on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So on Facebook Live, you have an opportunity to ask questions.
You just have to take a quick little break for technical difficulties.
I'm going to have to take a quick little break for technical difficulties. I apologize for that. Give us just 1 minute. Wow, I like that. Technical difficulty. The mic is on. There it is. Now it's on. Okay, there it is. Should be working.
Are all the rest of our mics on? Everybody else? Did you test everybody's mic? Yeah. Okay.
Let me do this.
All right. That's our technical difficulty. We have COVID.
Test. Test. 1, 2, test. I think my mic's on. All right, so sorry about that. My mic was off, and we had to put it back on. But getting back to the pandemic, you know, the candidates have had a challenge coming out to meet voters. The voters have had a challenge trying to meet the candidates. There's some really important races here in our county, and this is one of them. But we are practicing social distancing. We are wearing our masks when we come in. We choose when we sit down at the table to take them off so that we can speak with the voters and the people out there in the viewing, participating viewing public. We have partitions between our candidates, between our commentators, and we are doing our best to practice what the governor's orders are. We also have a certification for the studio here at Las Cruces Channel, and so I'm very proud of that. But this is how we have to engage now with the voters. This is one of the tools. We can no longer meet in community centers or churches, our local volunteer fire departments, but this is the space where we have today to engage with the voters. With that, I'd like to go ahead and just introduce our commentators. Marcy.
How are you? Thank you so much for having me. My name is Marcy Dickerson, and I am the owner of the Game 1 and Game 2 sports bar here in Las Cruces, as well as the owner of Dickerson's Catering, which before the pandemic used to be the largest catering company in southern New Mexico. But I am very excited to be here, and thank you very much for involving me.
Shirley.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is E. Shirley Baca. I am a former state representative and public regulation commissioner. I currently am a legislative analyst with the New Mexico State Senate, majority leadership, which is the Democrats. And to those of you listening tonight, we hope you are enjoying your Indigenous Peoples Day. That's what we call it in New Mexico. Some states still call it Columbus Day, but we hope you're enjoying your day off if you're lucky enough to work and have had a day off. And thank you, Arturo, for having me here tonight also.
So today we have the representative for the folks running for race 53, Representative District 53. 52. All right. So we have Representative Doreen Gallegos here and Dr. Foreman. I'm going to go ahead and allow Dr. Foreman.
Okay, great. Thank you for the invitation, and it's enjoyed being here tonight. Looking forward to the good discussion we're going to have. And my name is John Foreman. I'm the superintendent of Mesilla Valley Christian Schools, and I don't know how much you want me to share about that right now, but
you got a minute.
Oh, got a minute. Okay, well there we go. I got a lot more to say then. So, okay. So I've been in education a long time. Also, I've been a small business owner. I'm a parent. I've been a foster parent. I'm an adoptive parent. My wife and I have always tried to be involved in the community in whatever way we can with the resources and skills we have. I've probably coached about 500 Little League baseball and high school baseball games and little stuff all the ways, and so I love baseball. And so I'm running just because I'm concerned about the direction of our state. I'm concerned about a lot of the things I see happening. I see a movement in our state that I'm very uncomfortable with. I was looking at some statistics just yesterday from about 24 years ago from another state house race up in the San Juan McKinley County area. And some of the statistics that were shared during that race about where we ranked in the economy and with poverty and education, things like that. 24 years later, there's not a whole lot of movement in that. A little bit up and unfortunately some down. And I know these are not easy challenges. If they were simple solutions, we all would have done them before. So I'm looking forward to the discussion tonight, and just appreciate the opportunity and answer questions and do my very best.
Thank you, Dr. Foreman. Representative.
Thank you, and thank you for having me tonight. You know, as you mentioned before, it's hard to campaign right now. And getting out and meeting constituents, not being able to go door to door. This is the first time I actually meet my opponent in person. So just having the opportunity to do this is really important, because I think that District 52 needs to be able to look us both in the eye and have those conversations. I do want to re-emphasize that we all had our masks when we came in. There is the plexiglass, and we are all following the rules, because I think that that's really important, that we have that personal responsibility, and we want to make sure to keep hammering that. So I just wanted to make sure to mention that. I have, once again, my name is Doreen Gallegos. I have been the representative for District 52 for 8 years. I have been in a leadership position for the past 4 years. I'm the House Majority Whip, and you know, I'm really proud of the work that I've done for District 52. I'm a Aggie graduate. I have a bachelor's and a master's. I run a nonprofit here in Las Cruces. We advocate for children who have been abused or neglected, and you know, running a nonprofit, having some business experience, also using my social work skills. You know, when we're up in Santa Fe, you need all kinds of skills. And so I'm one of those people that have used all the talents that the good Lord has given me, and am really trying to make a difference for my community. I have I have a 16-year-old son and my husband who's here at the studio with me today. So thank you for having me.
Yeah. So the district that we're talking about right now is the one that runs like along Las Alturas in that area, in Tortugas, down towards parts of Mesquite. And how far do you go down past Mesquite?
So am I starting first? So we start in Talavera, which is behind the mountain. We curve around and we hit the university area. I represent half the university. I always say the athletic half because it's usually the Pan Am, or it is the Pan Am, and it's the football field and the baseball fields and that area. Then we go down into Vado, Berrino, and I end in Anthony. So I get real close to Mesquite, but that's not part of the district.
Yeah. So I know it's down towards that way. That's a pretty large Mexicano district.
It is.
So just wanted to let folks know the demographics and the landscape of that. With that, I'd like to go ahead and allow our commentators to go ahead and ask a question. Shirley, would you like to start?
Yes, I would. Thank you very much. Representative Gallegos, as you mentioned, you've held a leadership position. You're the House Majority Floor Leader and have been for at least 4 years now, if I remember correctly. And you mentioned that it takes a variety of skills to get bills through. So what are 2 or 3 bills that you have introduced and accomplished through its process that you're the most proud of?
Thank you, Shirley. And just to clarify, I'm the House Majority Whip.
The whip, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I knew you were majority.
Yes. So just to clarify on that, you know, this year actually I was able to pass the Early Childhood Trust Fund bill. And that was a really heavy lift. That was a lift that we had been trying to do this bill for about 3 years. And this year, because oil and gas had been so good to the state of New Mexico, we actually had excess funds, which is really hard to even think about right now. But in having those excess funds, I wanted to really look at the future and being able to have a trust fund for the children of New Mexico. So we were able to take $300 million and invest that, and we will be able to get dividends from those, hopefully from that money, for years to come. Given the pandemic situation, should we not put one more dime into that fund, it will still pay out for at least 10 years. And so I think regardless, it's a legacy bill, and I'm really proud of that. You know, another bill that I was able to do, and this was straight from a constituent, when there was insurance rates that shot off and went through the roof. And so I was able to do a bill that if your insurance rates are going to go up by 50%, you have to be notified at least 90 days in advance.
And the question, I know it was just...
Yes, thank you. Good answer. And Dr. Foreman, since you haven't had the opportunity to introduce any bills yet, should you be elected, what would be 2 or 3 bills of interest that you would like to introduce?
Sure. Well, whoever winds up in Santa Fe in January, we're going to have a lot of financial work to do. There's just no doubt about it. We've went from surplus to shortage. We've had COVID. We've had, to be honest, even before COVID, a lot of spending increases. I remember about 24% of new spending that came out of January, February. Last year, that's a lot of money. That's around $500 million. So we're going to have to figure out how we're going to handle that. As far as new bills, there's several things I think that can be financial stimulators for us. I think one is removing the tax on Social Security, and I know a lot of people are talking about that now, but that's something that's been high on my radar screen ever since the winter. Why we are double taxing our retirees and some of these folks, I just don't understand that. There's other ways to generate money. We're one of the few states that do that. Something else I think we need to look at, especially in the short term, is the some sort of relief, whatever that may look like, on the gross receipts tax for our service providers. A lot of these folks are self-employed. A lot of them live in our small rural communities. These are the people that provide all sorts of services to us and to our community, and they've been hit pretty hard with this. And I would love to see if we could somehow jumpstart that part of the economy, do something where we could help them get back on their feet and start to grow and prosper again.
Marcy.
Thank you. So I'll start with Doreen. I guess we're You went that way, so I'll follow you. So Doreen, you mentioned for a minute that you were the majority whip. Will you please explain what that position entails and what does that mean for Southern New Mexico? Because I'm not sure everybody quite understands the intricacies of what happens in Santa Fe.
Right. Wonderful question, and thank you for asking me that. It is a really important question because in knowing what the whip does, first of all, I'm the third in line for House leadership, which brings me to the table. I'm having those discussions, very high level discussions of what's going on with the state, with our budget, with committees, who gets put on committees, that sort of thing. You know, I know that we so many times, the line stops at Socorro when we talk about leadership. And so it's really important that Southern New Mexico has a strong voice. We recently have lost some of our strong voices within our Doniana delegation. And so right now I am leadership in Southern New Mexico, and I don't want us to lose that position. I think it's so important to make sure the dollars are flowing down to Southern New Mexico and that we protect areas of interest for us, the colonias, water, business. We need to make sure it comes all the way down and that our constituents' voices are heard up in Santa Fe.
Thank you very much. I have a much different question for Dr. Foreman. So Dr. Foreman, your school district has been full-time for quite a while. Thank you for doing that, by the way. Your school district had, the students are attending, they were part-time and now they are full-time. Please explain, how did you get that to happen and what advice do you have to get our state back to 100% attendance?
Well, it was not an easy decision or a simple decision, as you can imagine. We got feedback from our parents, we got feedback from our teachers. I was pleased to hear and pleased to report that 100% of our teachers say, we want to teach, get us back in the classroom, and we want to do that in the best way we could do that. We studied a lot this summer. We pulled about 10 or 12 different models from around the country of other schools we felt were doing a good job. We looked at things with New Mexico State University, we looked at CDC, we looked at all sorts of things and put together a return to school plan, which is a parent, you got one of those, and if I could say that. And we felt like this was just a step of faith we need to take. We think it was time for the kids to get back to school. We were testing students all summer from a variety of schools around the valley. These kids are all testing 3 to 4 months behind where they would typically test. And I'm not trying to fault anybody for that, I'm just saying it's just a fact. And so we understand as a group of educators, we have our work cut out for us. We've taken a lot of precautions. We're doing everything you can imagine that we should be doing, and if we see something else we need to do, we do that too. But it's important the kids are back to school, and I'm hoping that non-public schools like Mesilla Valley Christian School, and I'm not here to plug the school or anything. This is the phone, I'm joking, it's not the phone. I won't do that. I hope that we can be an encouragement to others. And I understand Las Cruces High School with 1,600 students, whatever their numbers may be, is a much different dynamic than us with 300. I understand that. But it's working. It's not been flawless. Nothing ever is. When you take a step of faith, you have to do that exactly. But the kids are learning. They're back in school. Our enrollment's up for whatever that's worth. And I think our teachers and our kids and parents are just doing an outstanding job with this. And I'm glad they're back in school.
You know, one of the things, I just saw, we had a death with one of the teachers in the Gadsden, and then we read in the paper about the number of people being tested for coronavirus that are educators in Las Cruces Public School District, the Gadsden School District. Has anyone tested positive in your school?
Well, if you understand the dynamics of all this, I have to be very careful how I answer that because there's a lot of privacy issues here. But I will say that we have had a couple situations where not directly off the campus, indirectly, it's usually a coworker, family member of a parent. Oftentimes they're in law enforcement, they're in agriculture, they're in areas where they're interacting with a lot of people along the time. And we've had to respond to that, of course, in the appropriate way. So,
all right, sure.
On that line, before I ask you another question, how many students are, and what is your staff at your school?
We have 305 students. Mm-hmm. When I left work today, at least we had 305. I assume they're all still there. Nobody's ran out on us. Staff members, we have 31 on faculty, teaching staff, probably about another 20 to 25 staff members, teachers, aides, office, bus drivers, and probably another 25 on top of that of coaches. So I would say in a total employment would probably be around 75, roughly speaking.
Okay, that being the case, this would be a question for Representative Gallegos. New Mexico is now at a spike. We have 9.7%, which is double what we should be having in order to really start talking about opening up schools and some of the businesses. On the same regard as Arturo mentioned, there was a death at the Gadsden Independent School District, a man by the name of Lugo. He was a teacher with special ed there. And today, Doña County, we're one of the highest of the 5 counties in New Mexico. We reported in 83 positive today. And every day it goes up and up and up. We had a death. So that being the case, and we're talking about public schools that are funded by public monies, not private schools funded by private individuals. What do you think about the opening of the schools, and what would we need to do to be able to do that safely?
You know, Shirley, I think it's a very tough question because we keep seeing the numbers go up. And, you know, you go out and many times you don't see people wearing their mask. They're not staying 6 feet apart. We have to have some personal, once again, personal responsibility to get that under control. I have a son who's 16 years old, and I'm very concerned about him going back to school. You know, 16-year-olds, they are children in general, but 16-year-olds, they're always touching each other, you know, and you can't seem to get them to wash their hands enough. And so I know it's been really tough, and you know, it's been tough for me trying to get my son when I'm trying to go to work, when I'm trying to make sure that I'm helping run the state, and to make sure that he gets his homework turned in. So I mean, I know it's tough. As parents, it's been really exhausting, and I think we're all suffering from COVID fatigue. But I just think that we've really got to start moving in a direction to make sure that we're safe. I'd like to see businesses open before schools.
Wow. Okay. Marcy. I mean, that was question. I think it's incredible, like, the challenges that we have right now, and trying to open up our schools, trying to open up the businesses. We all have family and friends that are in school, and we have a lot of family and friends that are in business. And it is, like, how do you do that? And I think that there is no answer really for it right now yet. But Marcy, go ahead and ask your question.
Well, I was going with a different question, but
go ahead. No.
I'm just going to go ahead and go with this. So, yes, we've talked about the spike in numbers and some other pieces of that Shirley talked to. So let me ask you this. How do you feel, and I'll address this one because we're going in order, to Ms. Doreen first. How do you feel that the governor has handled the COVID crisis so far?
Well, I think she was quick to respond, which I think was very good for New Mexico. It helped us with our numbers. We don't have, and I'm going to say infrastructure, but when I talk about infrastructure in this particular case, we don't have infrastructure as far as having the medical staff. We didn't have ventilators. We didn't have the infrastructure to keep citizens safe. And so she had to react quickly and swiftly. I also believe, though, that it's time to start looking at reopening. We need to make sure that our businesses don't die. We need to make sure that we can do this in a safe way. I believe that the candy lady down in Mesilla, who I love to visit, I've gone into her store since COVID has started, and they let 1 or 2 people in at a time because it's a very small space. And I think that they have more personal investment and responsibility to their customers than what I have seen in box stores. And so I am really, and I have had these conversations with the governor and the governor's office, that we need to start moving to a safe reopening and how to do that.
I have the same question for Dr. Foreman.
Okay. And just how do I feel the governor has handled this? Would that be the question? Okay. Again, if there was an easy solution to this, I assume we would have taken it a long time ago. I am not fully on board with the way this has been handled. I think there's been winners and losers picked in this. I really struggle why a church has to be closed and other things can be open. I don't get that. I think a lot of people don't get it. again, we've all, I think if we're all honest, we would say we're all fatigued with this. That's probably a good word. I am too. I'm so tired of it. But I understand you got to finish the race too, and we probably haven't finished the race yet. I get that too.
The presidential race?
No, I'm sorry. It's actually a biblical reference out of Philippians. But
Your race?
Okay, yeah, right. Well, whatever race. The race to, get COVID behind us. I guess I should say that. But it's so I realize that race isn't done yet. Again, I think after 6-7 months now, my concern is, well, I have several. I see our governor go on national television and just show how we're almost the model of how to do this. Then when I'm spoken to on Thursdays, I feel like I'm getting beat up a little bit, to be honest. We have a thing at our school, like all schools do. We have a campus safety program, and I require every employee to keep about a credit card size mini version of that plan, just so if something happened, they would know, they could look at it quickly. So last week I had $5 $10 bills, and I walked down at random, went to employees all over the school and said, can you within 10 seconds show me your safety card? And if they did, I give them $10. I've used Chick-fil-A cards. I've done all sorts of stuff. The point of that is that you get more honey with, you get more flies with honey than vinegar, I think. And I would encourage more of an approach to that. I do feel browbeaten this sometimes. I feel like if all of this is supposed to be working, why isn't it? If more people are wearing masks, I'm not crazy about it. I'm doing it. Why it doesn't seem to be working? So I think there's some frustration out there. I know there's a lot of frustration out there, and I think a better job could be done communicating what the plan is and how this is really going to work. I think people are going to start to lose faith and just start to do their own thing, which I know is not a good thing. So, sorry I went long.
All right.
Okay.
Shirley?
This is a question for both of you, since both of you have indicated that you believe that the economy needs to be opened up, and we really need to look at how our businesses are going to do. So during the special session in June, the legislature passed Senate Bill 3, which is the Small Business Recovery Act of 2020. Dr. Foreman, what do you think about that legislation, and should we continue with this? And that would be a same question for you too, Representative.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Without a copy of that in front of me, I can't look at it directly, of course, and give you a verbatim answer. I would just say in general terms that I'm going to support anything that does help our economy recover. Again, it's been said many times, people are struggling. We know that. There's got to be a solution for that. And I think we need to help those that need the help. Even with the federal stimulus package, I think that was a good thing for those who needed it. A lot of people who didn't need it got a check. I think those funds could have been better used somewhere else towards people and businesses who do need it.
Thank you.
Representative.
Actually, the Small Business Recovery Act, it was $400 million that was put into the bill to give out to businesses. And I don't think it went far enough. And it's been hard to access. I think that it was a first step. And I think that as legislators, when the pandemic hit, this has been new for all of us. So we're looking at ways to generate funding. We're looking at ways to move the economy. And this was, I think, a great first step. We need to go back and make sure that the businesses have access to the money. And that is where we have seen the shortfall in this bill. And so when we go back in January, I plan to really work with my colleagues to make sure that we have that accessibility, because we need to get the money out to the people for small businesses. That's where we should be starting and work from the ground up.
Thank you.
All right. And with that, we're going to go ahead and take a break. We'll come back, and feel free to ask questions on Facebook. Thank you.
When I think of MVT, I can't help but think of the finest trucking company in the U.S. They provide a driver experience like no other. From regional routes to great pay, they make it a priority to make sure you feel right at home. As a truck driver, there are several companies to choose from, but I decided to drive with MVT, where they have state-of-the-art equipment and the best trucks in the industry, so you arrive at your destination safely and in style. I truly love what I do. After all, I'm proud to be with MVT.
Join the Mesilla Valley Transportation family.
All right, welcome back to the 2020 New Mexico Election Candidates Forum here with the Citizens for Nonpartisan Civic Engagement. We're going to go ahead and continue with the questions, but I am encouraging those folks out there that are watching on Facebook to go ahead and ask a question. With that, I'd like to go ahead and Marcy, if you'd like to go ahead and...
You almost got 2 in a row.
No. It's okay. I'm here to share.
Speaking of, as we left, we talked about funding small businesses and helping with that. So obviously jobs are very, very important to New Mexico, and jobs are very important to southern New Mexico. So this one I'm going to start with Dr. Foreman, since I've been starting with Representative Gallegos. So Dr. Foreman, since those jobs are so important, what ideas do you have, or what do you plan to do in Santa Fe to help increase the job market in New Mexico and southern New Mexico?
Mm-hmm. Sure. Well, and I think just to start, New Mexico is not a business-friendly state. Anybody who's ever operated a business here in this state, with the taxes, the regulation, just so many hoops and barrels, I have just personally spent, I don't even know how much time trying to get a hold of the DMV in Santa Fe right now, and I know things are different right now, but we just made it way too complicated. And if we think that business and investors around the country don't look at this, we're wrong. If we think retirees around the country who used to flock to Las Cruces, I remember back in the 90s we had the Winter RV show here. We had so many RVs, or I'm sorry, not those 2 retirees. If we think they're not reading their ARP magazines and seeing that we're taxing the Social Security and most states aren't, we're wrong. We really are wrong. Education plays a part of this too. Major corporations, large businesses, bringing a lot of people in, whether they be blue collar, white collar. If you move, one of the first things you're going to look at is the local schools. What type of school options do I have for my kids? What are the quality of those schools? So anything we can do to improve education in our state, get us away from number 49 in test scores and number 1 in high school dropout rates, and start to move to a different direction, I think we're going to be well served, and I think that's just one of many pieces. And working with the local communities, there's a lot of other things, but I know I'm out of time. So.
All right, Representative.
And the same question to you, Representative.
Thank you. You know, I think education is a quality component, or quality education is a key component. And I think that's really important. So we've got to continue to make strides in that area. I think for the past couple of years, we really have started to move the needle, and we've got to continue to work at that. You know, our world is different, and we have got to acknowledge that. And so what we had really talked about during the session and pre-session is very different now as COVID has hit. We've got to get businesses going again. We've got to somehow look at whether it's LEDA funds. Well, you know, we just talked about our SB 3 bill to get money down. We've got to start generating those funds and getting them down here and actually working. And that's, I think, just the most important thing, because until we get our legs under us, it's going to be hard to get the economy back, and we can't let it go for too long.
Okay, we got a question now from Facebook that Jeanette is asking, I guess this is a question for the representative, but I mean, if whatever happens after this race, I guess it could apply to both of you. So Jeanette is asking, are you in favor of a special session to confront the governor's authority in regards, I guess, to the pandemic?
You know, we're going to be in session in January, and any governor that we have is they're with executive powers. I'm sorry, I'm stumbling because I'm trying to get my thoughts together. But they've got that, and so at this point, we need to have more legislative oversight. And you know, when the Constitution was written, nobody ever had the forethought that we would be in the middle of a pandemic. And when we talk about executive, I want to keep saying executive rights, executive orders. Thank you.
Authority.
I'm stumbling, but I knew what I wanted to say. When we start looking at that, we want to make sure that we don't have just one person making decisions. And so as a legislator, I don't want to hand over the reins and say, you know, do what you want to, because my constituents have a voice. I want to make sure that we do it and that it's fair. And I think that we need to have that oversight. The money that's being spent, legislators legislators and the executive have to hold each other accountable, because at the end of the day, we have to be accountable to our constituents. And so I just think that we need to get to session to take care of it, because it's a bigger issue, and it's going to take longer than a special 1 or 2 day session.
I mean, it's kind of a hard question for you to answer, and I think she pretty much framed it up. I mean, we're already going to go into session in January. So, I mean, well, what are your thoughts on the question?
So I guess Jeanette's question is, if that doesn't work, are we willing to do something else if that's what needs?
Go into
My
a
answer would
special
be
session.
yes. If need be, yes. Again, there's a lot of frustration out there. We have 3 separate but equal branches of government in the U.S. Constitution and the New Mexico Constitution back in 1912. And folks that read that, which probably is not enough, do. At our school, we make sure our kids read our state constitution. But it's important that, the Constitution starts out with, or the Declaration, we the people. And we forget that sometimes. These are our kids, this is our money, this is my business, and sometimes government of any type forgets that and they think it's theirs. It's not. They're there at our good graces. They are public servants, and that's true for my dad, who was a county administrator with social work, and so Representative Gallegos and I kind of share that in common. We both have some social work background, and I have great respect for those folks. It's a tough job. Law enforcement, those are tough jobs, and they work with difficult situations, so I'm always supportive of that. But I would say if that's what needs to get done, I think a lot of people feel that we have a governor with just too much power right now, and that can be and is a runaway situation. I don't know how she's networking with those in the legislature right now, because I'm not a part of that. I don't hear a lot locally. Now, again, I don't read the newspapers every day, and I don't listen to radio 20 hours a day either. I'm working. But I think if that's what needs to be done, I would be in favor of that, yes.
Arturo, can I add just one more comment for Jeanette?
30 seconds.
30 seconds. The only thing I wanted to add is that, with the sessions, we're talking about 30 and 60-day sessions. And so when we talk about the governor, she's up there doing the day-to-day operations type of thing. So we need to, it's hard when we're doing 30 and 60-day sessions. And so definitely we got to get in there, and we've got to make sure that we get these parameters mapped out.
All right. Okay. And then Shirley.
Thank you. One of the big responsibilities and duties that you have as a state, or you will have as a state representative, is the capital outlay funds that you would bring to your districts. So, question for both of you, and based on we the people and what we the people would say, what specific projects would you fund with your capital outlay funds, and should the current process for accessing your capital outlay monies be changed or continued as it is, and why? And I'll start with Dr. Foreman, then we'll go to Representative.
Sure. Okay. Well, I would just say again, in general, it's with the capital outlays, I'm excited about that. I'm a networking type of guy. I have written and overseen multi-million-dollar budgets for years. And one of the situations in my role, I'm also the guy that the buck stops with me. So if the budget goes well, it's okay. If the budget doesn't go so well, it's all my fault. And so I understand the weight of that too. That old saying, heavy is the head that wears the crown. I'm excited about working with a lot of our rural communities. I know when you talk to people in Anthony, Vado, Barreno, Mesquite, and down in those areas, it's tough. I won't be one that'll sit here and say, I understand what it is to live there. I lived on the Navajo Nation for 5 years. I will say I understand what it's like to live there for 5 years. People are there in the day-to-day. They understand it better than I do. I have a small town background, and I understand that small town, but we need to be networking with local leaders and people, meeting with them on a regular basis and say, we have this. How can we work together with our city councils, our county commission, our village councils? How can we work together?
Excuse me, Dr. Foreman, you didn't answer the question. What are your capital outlay projects that you would specifically like to?
Yeah, well, certainly anything that will improve the infrastructure. I know down in the South Valley flooding has been an issue. Roads are an issue. Again, I think anything that can help us to attract business through those things. I guess I would just answer it that way.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of a big question to answer in a short period of time. But
so, I mean, I just, and I don't mean to take any time from you, Representative, but you are aware of the Colonias Infrastructure Trust Fund, the Colonias Initiative that goes out to support those projects Are you familiar with that?
Generally, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, probably not as much as you are living there, but generally, yes.
Well, as you know, living here, it was built, it was created so that we could have infrastructure. I would hope that you would, you know, learn more about it, and
Absolutely.
if we can, you know, whatever happens in the race, that we can count on your support
Sure,
for that.
absolutely. I think I will say, people that don't know me, I'm a hard-working person. I put in my hours in my job. I love what I do, and what I don't know, I will figure out, and even more importantly, go to people who do know and network. My father-in-law, who was a wise man, used to say, winners get help. I believe in that. I don't know everything, but other people do, and I can work and network with them for the good of them. Yep.
All right. I'm sorry about the interruption.
No, that's okay.
Go ahead, Representative.
Do you need me to repeat the question?
Sure.
Okay, it is, what specific projects would you fund with your capital outlay funds, and should the current capital outlay process be changed?
Okay. Well, I have already funded over $2 million worth of projects. Projects that I'm proud of every one of them. What I do is I start in Anthony and I work my way north, because I think Anthony, the southern area of my district, has the most need. And that does, Anthony is a colonia, Vado is a colonia. I've joined with the governor's staff, and we've done huge multi-million-dollar water projects in that area. Sewer isn't sexy, but we do a lot of sewer projects, because down there, you know, that's what the need is. Roads, definitely. We are putting, you know, some of the bridges down in Anthony. I know we're working to get those done, because they're in bad shape. We've got to look at public safety. Speaking of public safety, I just put in $125,000 for 3 police cars down in Anthony. We've got to keep making sure that people are safe, that our infrastructure is safe, that we're getting sewer water out to people and clean water. All those things are so important. In that district, it's very rural. And I see I'm getting the card, so I'm trying to talk fast, but lots of needs in the area.
And the process?
Oh, the process. You know, people have asked about, you know, we should change the process, and it should be regional projects. And I always try to work at least 1 or 2 regional projects within the district. But what I will say is that if we didn't have capital outlay for individual legislators, places like Vado, Berino, Talavera would not get money.
All right, Marcy.
So to switch it up just a little bit. So many of the candidates are questioning our reliance on oil and gas income from New Mexico, especially this year after we've taken such a loss, after we had such an abundance of it before COVID. What ideas do you have to diversify the state revenues in New Mexico? And whichever one wants to answer it first, I'm fine.
Dr. Foreman.
Sure. Good question.
Good question.
You know, I think static thinking says you can only do one or the other, and I'm more of a dynamic thinking type of guy, hopefully. I think there's room for both. I think oil and gas have a place. Obviously, they're a big part of the economic backbone. I think renewable energy, such as solar, I think has a place for that too. So I don't, I know some, again, just thinking of newspaper articles, stuff you see online, it's got to be one way or the other with so many different issues. And I think that's what polarizes us. That's what divides us. I think in that situation, there is room for both. When we lived up in the McKinley County, Gallup area, and I would say the same thing with Doniana and Las Cruces area, we were just ripe, so to speak, for manufacturing some of those different things. And so we have to figure out, why won't people bring manufacturing here? I believe in vocational training for our young people, as well as good college preparatory. If the sociologists are correct in New Mexico State, in the next 10 years, our population is going to drop, the school-age population is going to drop by, I believe it was 9%. So we're going to have some empty school buildings. What are we going to do with those if those trends are correct? Again, that's a 5-minute question.
But you still got 30 seconds.
I still got a few minutes. Okay,
yeah,
good.
A few seconds, 30
I'm
seconds.
definitely a prime the pump type of person. I don't think we can tax our way out of problems. I'm concerned with what I see coming in January. There's 3 options. We're going to have to cut back on spending, tap in big time to the permanent fund, or we're going to have to raise a lot of taxes. And I'm not I don't believe that. I think we can do it without tax increases. I think there's ways to be more disciplined like that when it comes to budgets. So.
Representative.
I was writing down as many notes as I could. You know, I believe that oil and gas has been very good to us. And that was one of the reasons that I was able to get our $300 million trust fund for our babies. So I'm very open to working as long as it's clean and it's making sense for our environment. You know, we live in New Mexico, the land of enchantment, and there's sun and there's wind most days. And so we really have got to look into tapping into that. I would love to see any new government, city, county building that goes up, that there's solar panels on top of that. I think I had mentioned this in another forum, but we, at our household, we put up solar panels the last 2 years. This last month, we paid $25 for our electricity. And I've got that air conditioner going all the time. So I think that's really important to start looking at some of that. You know, I think we also have to look at some private public partnerships, because I think it's really important that we start looking at, you know, what is, maybe is that entertainment? Is that dining out? Is that, you know, how are we going to start generating some of the economy? And that's how we do that.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and this is an opportunity for you, the candidates, to ask a question of each other, and then we'll go ahead and when you're done answering the questions from each other, we'll go ahead and you can ask the voters for their vote. But I'll go ahead and allow Dr. Foreman, if you would like to ask your question.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. Again, thanks for the opportunity. Thanks for the good discussion tonight. I appreciate the professional decorum and the way we can have these good discussions. So, because I understand in our heart, we're all good people wanting good things for New Mexico. We just have different philosophies of how to get there. So I guess Representative Gallegos, my question would be, as a voter, more so as a candidate perhaps, as a resident of the county and whatnot, the Democratic Party has had a long time to do a lot of things, just decades and decades and decades of opportunity. And I'm very concerned about some of the things I see, educational scores, high school dropout rates, number 47 in economy, where Texas is number 1 and other states around us are much higher. I'm just, I guess I'd just like to ask you what thoughts you could share on how we can turn that tide, how we can move away from scores here and scores going up and catching up with other states more in the economy, so we're not number 47. I'd love to pick up the paper tomorrow and see we're number 27, right, moving ahead. Right. So I'm just be curious what your thoughts may be on that.
Well, like I said, I've been in the legislature for 8 years, and in 8 years I've learned a lot. And you know, it's like driving a bus, and sometimes making some changes, it's slow to do that. It's hard for me to talk about before I got to the legislature, so I can talk about the 8 years that I've been there. And I know during those 8 years, I have seen the dial change. Making sure that we're working with school boards, bringing things local. I think part of the last administration, things were taken out of public hands, and when I say public, taken out of the hands of local communities. And we've really got to be having those conversations with our community leaders. We've got to be talking with how it affects people that are providing services. I think tax incentives are really important. And I've run a couple bills to really look at tax incentives. And for the state of New Mexico, we can't just pull out one piece and say that's, you know, we're going to just take that piece out, because it's all like a Jenga puzzle. And so I really think that we need to look at tax reform. And that doesn't mean taxing our way out of it, because I'm not for that, especially right now. Too many businesses are hurting, people are hurting. We've got to figure out how to incentivize and put some juice back into our economy to make sure that you know, we all can get out of this, that we can all dust ourselves off and get through.
All right, Representative, you have an opportunity to ask Dr. Foreman a question.
You know, Dr. Foreman, first of all, I'd like to thank you. We've had several kind of forums, and just being polite to each other, not having the Congress type of fights. I think you mentioned it before, you know, we come from backgrounds of wanting to help each other, wanting to help our community, and be people of service. And so, you know, I think it's important that you're able to run, and that we all are, you know, that we all have that opportunity. And so, you know, I think that that's very important, to be civil to each other. And so I just want to say thank you.
You too. Thank you.
What I do want to say, though, is, you know, when you go to Santa Fe, it's drinking from a water hose. It's so much information. And right now, with the way things are, we are going to have to hit the ground running. What type of, or what committees would you be on or want to be on to make sure to help move that dial forward? And, you know, for us to be in that running mode, you're not going to have time for a learning curve. And so, why do you think you would be in a better position than me to fill that seat?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for the question. Well, the committees I would like to serve on, of course, party leadership, I assume will have more of a voice in that than I may. I'm sure they'll take my input. Education is certainly one of them. I've been part of a non-public school for many years, and I've also taught in public schools. I'm not an anti-public school person. I would love to pick up the papers tomorrow and see that we're #1 in the state in public school education. That doesn't change the mission of a faith-based private school. We have a different mission. Transportation, I have a trucking background. I always often say I'm probably one of the few principals in New Mexico. I've driven about 450,000 miles in a semi-truck around the U.S. and Canada. I know where most of the truck stops, used to be at least in my day. So I've worked dairy farms, I've done all sorts of stuff. I worked myself through 3 college degrees. So when a young person says, I don't think it could be done, they're talking to the wrong person. It can't be done. It just takes hard work. So transportation, education, things that are finance. I am a numbers person. A lot to learn, there's no doubt about it. That's going to be true for anybody who goes in as a freshman. I'll just say that I will work hard. I will be the fastest learner I can. I will get help from other good people, Democrat or Republican. If the bill is good for Donyan County, I'm going to support it. I don't care who sponsors it. I want this to be about us and our folks here in the communities.
And this is your opportunity to go ahead and ask the voters for their vote.
Okay, I'd like for you to vote for me.
Right here.
Okay, I got it straight up there.
You got a minute.
Okay, great. Okay, looking at that one. Okay, again, I just appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening. Of course, I'd love to have your vote. I realize votes have to be earned, and they will have to be, it's like respect, it has to be maintained. I am a hard-working person. I think people that know me will say that. I've always seen myself a little bit as a self-made type of guy. My parents, neither one finished high school through the Depression. My father was able to get into social work with without even a high school diploma, which he couldn't do today, and was a county administrator. I was taught the value of hard work. I know how to get things done. I know how to handle money. I know how to handle budgets. I know how to work with a wide variety of people and to get things accomplished for our county. And I'm looking forward to that opportunity. I would ask for your vote and just appreciate you watching this evening.
Yeah. Thank you. Representative.
Thank you.
You got a minute.
Thank you for hosting tonight, and thank you for this opportunity. First of all, I want to make sure to ask for your vote. I think it's so important. I know that times we need to make the plan on how we're going to get out there and vote, so that's important. I am doing the job, and I've been very successful at doing this job. I want to continue to do this job, and I want to continue to represent District 52. I believe that I am the best person that's for this job because I understand where the pitfalls are, and I know that we're going to have to be job ready day one. I'm already sitting on those committees, I'm already making those decisions, and I'm already working for you. I work both sides of the aisle as whip. I make sure that I have those communications. I am trusted by my colleagues, and I am trusted by my constituents. And so I'm very proud to be your representative, and I ask that you send me back to Santa Fe.
All right. Well, thank you. I just really appreciate you guys coming out and sitting with us and giving the viewing audience an opportunity. We did get a question off of Facebook, so that's what we're doing it for. I just want to say good luck on your campaign, and I thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
With that, I want to go ahead and sit and talk with my commentators, Marcy and Shirley. How do you think the candidates did tonight, Marcy?
I would say I certainly think that they, both were very well prepared. I think we have a lot of knowledge. They do come from different backgrounds. And I think the important thing with all of this is not only, how do our candidates do, but for the people that are tuning in, they certainly can watch it over and over. If you didn't catch it live, you can come back and watch it again. But I think what is so important is that people get out and vote. You know, New Mexico is notorious, I've said this before, New Mexico is notorious for a low voter turnout. We are not seeing that so far in 2020. We're seeing a lot of people getting out and vote. And, you know, that's really important to do. I mean, never before, I think, has it ever been so apparent to the general public that elections have consequences. And certainly that is screaming at us every day. You know, whoever thought that the governor would be able to make a unilateral decision to shut down the state, you know, for 7 months. So, you know, never before has anybody seen that. And I think that it's really important that people go out and they make those decisions, whether their decisions are red or blue, whether it's conservative or liberal. You know, make sure that the voice that is heard is your voice. And I think that's really important.
Shirley, what was your take on the candidates?
I actually learned a lot from both of the candidates today. I enjoyed when Dr. Foreman said that New Mexico is not business friendly. We hear this over and over again. He also suggested about removing the tax on Social Security, and I think that's something that definitely needs to be looked at. Representative Gallegos said she'd like to look into more tax reform, and I without any specifics, I think that's absolutely timely and necessary, and particularly after this pandemic. And just a little remark to you, my co-commentator, Marcy, in 1918 we experienced 2 years of the pandemic flu. It was the Spanish flu, even though it didn't come from Spain, but that was the name they gave it. And actually, New Mexico had just been a state since 1912, and the governor shut down the state. And in fact, people were required to wear masks. And I was reading in a history article this week that if people didn't wear masks, they were charged a fine of like $42, which today would be like $500, a lot of money. And I'm like, oh my God. And so it has been done. The good thing is that we haven't had to do it because we haven't had viruses and pandemics of this magnitude. But it was done before your.
Well, I thank you for that history. I was not aware of that. So in 1918, it happened before.
And we were shut down for 2 years. And so where everybody talks about fatigue, I think because I have a kind of a historical mind and I'm always busy in my head. I'm not fatigued, but I keep myself really busy, and of course you have a different challenge with your businesses and to keep them going and your workers, and you've done a lot for your workers.
As a parent, as a citizen, I am fatigued.
Yeah, some people
but
are.
one of the things I want to just ask you, this will be the last question before we wrap up, but I mean, I asked you about the candidates, but did you see anything really different, like any different in the way they would govern? Like, did you see any difference? I mean, the questions we asked, I think they were all pretty much in agreement with. I mean, did you see any differences?
I think the big difference between these two is the fact that one of them is already in position and has a power position, and the other one would be a new candidate. I mean, I think both of them are very capable of doing the job, certainly. And I think that their answers weren't too far away from each other. You know, we're not looking at, I think we're really looking at two sets of moderates. We're not looking at polar opposites, which, you know, is refreshing because a lot of times, as you know, we get into this fight and we've got one that's way over here and one that's way over here. And I think both of these, you know, would be good candidates for New Mexico and certainly would represent southern New Mexico because we are the forgotten stepchild. And, you know, it's really important that we send people to Santa Fe who are willing to stand up and fight for us, or we will be forgotten. You know, and I think that's important.
I do too.
I mean, you've been up there, right? Did you not have to fight hard for us?
Every day and all the time. And even as an employee, I have to fight.
Yes. I mean, as the legislative advisor, you're like, remember there's these people down south.
South of the Mason-Dixie line.
Yeah.
I-10.
Did you see any difference?
Yeah, what I did see that stood out to me, and it's pretty much in line with what Marcy is saying, Arturo, is that one is ready to hit the ground running on day one. She knows the process, she knows the procedure, she knows the players. That's our incumbent, the representative. On the same vein, Dr. Foreman has expressed clearly that he's ready to roll up his sleeves and work. He would work with both sides of the aisle, and he would do whatever he could to do the best for Doña County and for his district. And as we all say, and I think it was said again today, this is about public service. This is the servant leader. This isn't about politics. This isn't about the polarization that you've mentioned. This is about doing what's right for the people. But it was obvious to me that the incumbent representative is the best prepared to get in and hit the ground running, even if she is wearing high heels.
Well, thank you very much, both of you. Thank you, the viewing audience. Thank you for asking questions. We can't take all the questions that come on through Facebook, but we do our best. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our sponsors, Mesilla Valley Transportation, Southwest Organizing Project, and the Las Cruces Channel. This is an opportunity for you, the folks, to engage with us. We have 3 more shows that we're going to be doing. Next week, we'll have Representative Lada with Don Ladd. And we look forward to having your questions on that show also. So thank you, and just remember, live to vote, vote to live. Have a good night.
I can't help but think of the finest trucking company in the U.S. They provide a driver experience like no other. From regional routes to great pay, they make it a priority to make sure you feel right at home. As a truck driver, there are several companies to choose from, but I decided to drive with MVT, where they have state-of-the-art equipment and the best trucks in the industry, so you arrive at your destination safely and in style. I truly love what I do. After all, I'm proud to be with MVT.
Join the Mesilla Valley Transportation family.